Commander Elias Ward stood still as the shuttle doors opened, letting in the soft golden light of the alien world called Virilia, a planet unknown to humans until just 6 months ago, when a peaceful signal reached Earth's deep space listening. Post with a single message: "We see you." After long debate, the leaders of Earth agreed not to send warships or armies, but one human an envoy to show peace. Elias was chosen not because he was the strongest or smartest, but because he had once stopped a war by refusing to fire back. Now he stepped onto the shimmering surface of Virilia, where everything sparkled with a crystal blue glow, and the air hummed with a strange calm. A wide path stretched before him, lined by towering beings with silver skin and robes that flowed like water, but they were not the ones who drew gasps from the crowd. At the top of the stairs stood a tall figure in flowing royal blue, her crown made of stars, her presence quiet yet powerful. It was Queen Seravine, the ruler of the Virilian Empire. Her eyes, bright like twin moons, locked onto Elias with a look that felt like recognition. And then something unexpected happened. The queen's cheeks shimmered into a soft violet hue, a Virilian blush, which according to diplomatic files was rare and reserved for deep feelings. The crowd fell silent. No one moved. Elias, unsure but respectful, bowed. The queen stepped forward slowly, the soft chimes of her jewelry echoing through the air, and when she spoke her voice was soft but clear. "Welcome, child of Earth. I've waited for you." Elias felt a strange chill run through him. Not from fear, but from something deeper, something ancient. He was led into the palace, past floating orbs of light and walls that whispered with forgotten songs. Everything felt alive, as if the place itself watched him. He answered the queen's questions with careful honesty, about Earth, about his journey, about humanity's hopes. But she never asked about weapons, power, or trade. She asked about dreams, about what the ocean felt like, and what stars looked like from Earth's sky. There was a softness in her that didn't match the cold history files the Earth Council had shown him. As the meeting ended, she placed her hand gently over her chest and said, "You are not what I expected, and yet, somehow, I knew." Elias returned to his quarters, his mind full of questions. He knew diplomacy could be strange, but this felt personal. The queen's expression, her tone, the way the Virilians watched him, it was more than curiosity. That night, while staring out the window at the twin moons of Virilia, a message blinked onto his desk. No signature, just a soft light and one line. "She remembers." Elias leaned back, unsettled. Remembers what? He hadn't been here before. Earth's history said this was first contact, and yet the way the queen looked at him spoke to him. It was as if she had known him for years. As he stood and turned off the light, he didn't see the shadow that passed outside his door, or the small blinking drone that silently flew away into the dark. Something else was moving beneath the peace, something waiting. Something watching. Elias woke early the next morning, unable to forget the message. She remembers. He paced his room, trying to make sense of it, but no answers came. Soon a soft chime rang, and a silver-skinned servant arrived to guide him through the palace. He was led to a place unlike anything he had seen before, a garden that floated in the air, where giant flowers spun slowly and petals hovered like stars caught in a dream. The queen stood at the center, her robe flowing around her like mist, her back turned as if deep in thought. When she saw him, her violet blush returned, faint but real, and she smiled, not the smile of a ruler, but of someone meeting a familiar soul. She asked him to walk with her, and he did, though the ground shifted gently with each step, as if the garden itself breathed. "I've seen your world," she said softly, "not through ships or screens, but in dreams since I was a child. A world of green forests, blue oceans, and skies that change with the wind." Elias felt his chest tighten. No maps or probes had ever gone to Earth from Virelia, and yet she described it perfectly. She spoke of waves crashing on rocks, of thunder, of music made by human voices. Elias listened, unsure whether he was dreaming or if she truly knew these things. "You were there," she whispered. "Not you exactly, but someone like you. Someone who looked at me not with fear, but with wonder." The Queen's smile faded slightly as she turned her gaze away, but dreams can be dangerous. They make people ask questions. Just then, a group of Virelian nobles approached, their faces unreadable, their eyes narrow. One of them, taller than the rest and dressed in sharp black, bowed slightly, but kept his tone cold. "Your Radiance, may we remind you that the court watches, and dreams are not policy." The Queen remained calm, but firm. "Then let them. Watch." Her hand gently touched Elias's arm, and every eye followed the gesture. The noble's stare deepened, and his voice dropped. "Beware of hope. It blinds even wise rulers." They left with stiff bows, but their meaning was clear. Elias could feel it in the air: jealousy, suspicion, and fear. The Queen turned back. To him with a quiet sigh, "Many do not want you here. They fear what I feel." Elias raised a brow, caught off guard. "And what do you feel?" She looked at him then, not as a queen, but as a person, and said, "A memory I can't explain." Later, back in his room, Elias tried to contact Earth Command, but his signal was delayed by security checks. He wasn't surprised. As night fell, a flickering light glowed from his desk. Again, another message, but this time with a soft voice. "You are in danger. Leave the palace. You are not supposed to reach her." The voice was young, trembling, and cut off quickly. Elias stood, tension building in his chest, but before he could act, a strange sound echoed from his door, a soft scratch, like claws or metal. He froze, stepped quietly to the entrance, and opened it fast, but the hallway was empty. Nothing but silence. He stepped outside and looked down both sides. Still no movement. But on the ground lay something small, a silver feather, warm to the touch. He picked it up and stared at it, heart racing. Something was happening, and it wasn't just diplomacy. Somewhere behind the Queen's dreams, and the noble's warnings, and the quiet threat scratching at his door was a secret no one wanted told. And Elias had just stepped right into it. Elias spent most of the night sitting at the edge of his bed, holding the silver feather and staring at the door as if it might open again. But nothing came, only the soft hum of the walls and the strange calm of Virelia's silent nights. And yet he couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching him from the shadows. When the morning came, a new attendant arrived, this one younger, with nervous eyes and trembling hands, who whispered without looking up. They listened through the walls. Even now, then left quickly, leaving behind a tray of untouched food and a folded piece of cloth under the plate. hidden note written in careful lines. There is an old memory chamber beneath the palace, a forbidden place. The queen wants you to see it. Follow the humming walls after midnight. Elias hid the note and forced himself to appear calm through the day, answering questions from the palace scholars, meeting more of the council, especially High Counselor Vorn, the same one who had warned the queen in the garden, and who now looked at Elias as if he were a puzzle missing one dangerous piece. Vorn asked questions that were too sharp, like knives hidden in polite words, trying to find something, maybe weakness, maybe proof that Elias was more than just a visitor. That night Elias waited until the palace lights dimmed and the hallways emptied, then stepped out and placed his hand gently on the nearest wall, which pulsed softly under his palm, as if responding to him. Following the pulse, he walked through winding halls, and beneath arches lit with faint blue lines, until he reached a door that didn't look like a door, just part of the wall. But when he placed the silver feather near it, the surface shimmered and opened like water. Inside was darkness, heavy and cold, and as he moved deeper, faint lights began to glow around him, revealing ancient carvings, stone faces, and symbols older than any human or Varelian record. At the center of the chamber stood the queen, alone, wrapped in a dark cloak, and when she turned there was no blush, only sorrow in her eyes. "I dreamed of this place," she said quietly, "before I ever saw it, but I didn't know why until you came." She led Elias to the far wall where a large mural was carved, showing two beings, one human, one Varelian, standing beneath two suns joined in the sky, holding hands as if they were one people, not two. "We were connected once," Saravine sighed, "before memory was stolen, before history was rewritten." Elias stepped closer, tracing the carvings with his fingers, feeling something deep stir inside him, a pull, a familiarity he couldn't explain. This was real? He asked, "Our ancestors?" The queen nodded, her voice shaking. "But those in power feared the truth. They erased it. Now they call me weak for remembering you in dreams." Just then a siren wailed through the chamber, sharp, sudden, unnatural. Doors slammed shut above. Lights blinked red. Soldiers were coming. The queen's eyes widened. They followed us. They knew. Elias turned to shield her as the door burst open and armored guards poured in, surrounding them with weapons raised. Vorn stepped through, face cold and sharp. "You've gone too far, both of you," he said. "Your dreams have become treason." Elias stepped forward, hands up. "She showed me the truth. You're afraid of it?" But the guards didn't listen. They grabbed him, tore him away from the queen, whose voice broke as she shouted his name. Elias was dragged from the chamber, forced through halls that now felt like cages, and thrown into a stone cell deep beneath the palace, where no light reached and no sound escaped. Alone in the dark, Elias sat on the floor, heart racing. The image of the mural burned into his memory, the two figures under the twin suns, and he realized something terrible. This wasn't just about him or the queen's dreams. This was about an ancient lie, and someone was willing to bury it again, no matter the cost. As he leaned his head back against the cold wall, he whispered to the darkness, "What are they so afraid of?" From behind the wall, something moved just. A small sound, like a whisper, followed by a faint light through the cracks. He wasn't alone. Someone or something was listening. The air inside the cell was damp and heavy, and Elias could feel it pressing against his skin like the weight of silence itself. Yet the whisper he had heard behind the wall kept echoing, and his mind faint but real, and when he pressed his ear to the cold stone, he felt a soft vibration as if the wall itself was alive. Then a small section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel no bigger than a crawl space, lit by a single line of glowing symbols along the side, and before he could question it, a figure stepped out from the shadows, a woman with sharp eyes, skin like metal and light, and strange tattoos running down her arms. She said only one thing: "If you want to live, follow me." Elias didn't hesitate, crawling behind her through the narrow passage, as it twisted and turned like the inside of a great machine, and he quickly realized this wasn't just a tunnel. It was part of something older, something buried under the palace that few remembered. "Who are you?" he asked as they climbed down into a chamber filled with hanging vines of light and strange machines covered in dust. "Name's Kale," she said, glancing back. "Half Virelian, half human. My parents were part of the old resistance, the ones who tried to keep the truth alive." Elias was stunned. "So it's true? We were once one people?" Kale nodded, her face darkening. "And the council erased everything. They're afraid of what will happen if the people remember. That's why they locked you up." They moved deeper into the maze, passing walls filled with carvings and broken statues, each one showing humans and Virelians standing together, building together, living side by side under the twin suns. "This place is called the heart of the labyrinth," Kale whispered. "The center of what we once were. And you're the first outsider to step into it in 1,000 years." At the center of the labyrinth was a giant circular chamber, silent, and glowing faintly where a strange pod stood on a raised platform covered in glass that shimmered like water. Inside it lay a man, pale, still but alive, his clothes strange, old, and clearly human. Elias stepped closer, heart pounding. "Who is he?" Kale spoke softly. "One of the first. A human explorer who came here long ago. They said he vanished, but he was captured and kept in stasis, so no one would ever know the truth." Elias looked down at the man and suddenly felt dizzy, as if something deep in his memory had shifted. "I've seen him before," he whispered. "Not in life, but in dreams. Just like the Queen saw me." A soft hum filled the air, and the pod flickered to life. The man's eyes fluttered open, and though he didn't speak, the machines around him lit up, displaying symbols and a message in both Earth's language and the Virelian tongue. Unity was never lost, only buried. Kale turned sharply. "The system's waking up. That means someone knows we're here." Just then, the ground shook slightly, and distant voices echoed down the tunnels. "They're coming," she said. "We have to get you out." But Elias stepped forward. "No, we need to show the Queen this. She has to see it with her own eyes." Kale hesitated, then handed him a glowing orb. "Take this. It's a memory crystal. It records truth. If you can reach her, show her everything." Alarms began to blare in the distance as Kale led him to a hidden exit behind a crumbling statue. "Go now," she said. "I'll cover your escape." Elias ran through the narrow paths, clutching the crystal, until he emerged in a quiet courtyard beneath the palace gardens. Guards were already searching nearby, so he stayed low, moving through the shadows until he reached the Queen's chamber entrance. The doors were locked, guarded, and he knew he had only seconds. He activated the crystal and the carvings, the ancient man, the murals, all of it shone in the air like a dream brought to life. The guards turned, stunned, and before they could act, the Queen's voice called from within, "Let him in." The doors opened, and Elias stepped forward, heart racing, holding the truth in his hand. Seraphine looked at the floating images with wide, tear-filled eyes. "I knew it," she whispered. "I wasn't dreaming. I was remembering." But even as they stood together, the sound of marching feet echoed through the halls. The council was coming, and they were not coming to talk. The doors slammed open with a crash as Counselor Vorn and a full squad of royal guards stormed into the Queen's chamber, weapons drawn and voices sharp with commands. But Queen Seraphine did not flinch. Instead, she stood tall beside Elias, her eyes locked on the floating images from the memory crystal as they danced through the air, showing ancient murals, forgotten carvings, and the sleeping human explorer from the hidden chamber. And for a long moment, no one in the room moved, as if the truth itself had frozen time. Warren pointed at Elias and shouted, "He has poisoned your mind with lies and illusions." But the Queen raised her hand, and the room fell silent. "You are wrong," she said calmly. "I was born with these memories. I just never knew what they meant until he came." The guards hesitated, unsure whether to follow Vorn or their queen, and as the crystal continued to glow, the images shifted now, showing a time long before war, when humans and Varelians stood side by side under twin suns, their hands joined in peace and unity, their voices raised in song, not battle. "You buried our history," Seraphine said, stepping forward. "You erased the truth to keep power, but the truth is awake now, and I will not silence it." Vorn's face twisted in anger. "If you do this, you risk everything our rule, our order, our control." "Then let it fall," the Queen answered. "Let it all fall, if it means remembering who we really are." As tension crackled in the air, one of the guards slowly lowered his weapon and stepped back. Then another followed, until all of them turned away from Vorn and toward Seraphine, their expressions uncertain, but moved by what they had seen. Vorn, realizing he had lost control, lunged toward the crystal to destroy it, but Elias stepped in front, blocking him just in time, and the two men clashed in a quick, sharp struggle, ending when Elias struck Vorn's arm and sent him stumbling backward into the marble floor. The counselor was taken away by his own guards, no longer in command, while Seraphine took the memory crystal in her hands and turned to the crowd now gathering in the hallway beyond, advisors, servants, and nobles, all drawn by the noise, all watching with wide, confused eyes. "This," she said, lifting the crystal high, "is the truth we lost, the truth we were never meant to forget." News spread across Varelia like fire on dry leaves, and within hours, massive crystal screens across the cities began to display the images from the crystal proof of the old alliance, of the ancient explorer still sleeping, of a time when humans and Varelians were not strangers but kin. Crowds gathered, stunned, many weeping, as dreams they had long buried returned to them like distant music, and the weight of history began to shift. In the following days a new chamber was opened in the palace, a hall of memory where anyone could come and see the truth for themselves, and as peace returned, Ilas stood beside Saravine as she addressed her people, not as a queen with all the answers, but as a leader who had finally remembered her past. "This man came not as a conqueror or a savior," she said, "but as a mirror that showed me what I had always carried inside me." Then she turned to Elias, her violet blush soft but bright, and spoke words that made the gathered crowd fall silent. "I dreamed of Earth because it was always part of me, and I dreamed of you because you were always meant to find me." There, hands joined, not in command, but in shared truth, and as the twin suns rose together in the sky, lighting the joined banners of Earth and Virelia, the galaxy watched a new chapter begin, not written in fear or power, but in something far older and stronger, the deep, quiet force of memory and the long-lost promise of unity finally awakened.